Welcome to episode 2 of How It All Began. This is going to be another interesting episode. I have my guest, Marc Ramirez, who has a both incredible and heartbreaking story between his family history and their health issues that plagued them. Marc, though, however, found something that changed his life in a gift from his in-laws. And I can't wait to talk about this gift because this gift is one of the things that really helped spur the changes that, to be honest with you, probably saved Marc's life. And the work that Marc and his wife are doing through their organization, Chickpea and Bean, is outstanding, and they're helping others change their lives as well. So I just looking forward to this conversation. As you see behind Marc's shoulder, there's also a Michigan football helmet. We might talk about that a little bit, and just really looking forward to this conversation. So, Marc, thank you very much for joining me.
Hey, Chris, it's an honor to be here. Love all the work that you're doing. And yeah, just an honor to be here and share my story in hopes that what you're doing, what I'm doing can help inspire some others to do some great things that we all can do in the way of helping our health, helping the planet, helping basically the animals as well, right? Which I know is huge. So yeah, appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, you've been sharing your story for some time, and I think one of the first things I'd like, if you would share your journey with your family. So you grew up in South Texas. And folks who don't know, growing up in South Texas means we eat a lot of meat. Uh,
For sure.
that's just it almost seems like that's the home of barbecues and burgers and steaks and cattle, and it's just kind of the heart of it all. So what was growing up for you like with your family, and if you want to share some of your mom's challenges that she dealt with through her life?
Yeah, so it is interesting. I was born and raised in southern Texas, like you mentioned, McAllen, Texas to be exact. So right down there, they call it the tip of Texas, right? About 20 minutes from the Mexican border, about an hour in from the Gulf of Mexico. That's where you'll find McAllen. And grew up there till I was 14 years old. My mother pretty much raised us. My dad left early. When I was 6 or 7 years old, and my dad was out of the picture. So it was really my mom who was the rock of the family. He left here now with 8 children, Chris. There were 6 births, but I happened to be a twin. And then the first set of twins, Jack and Jill, that after the first 4, my mom, said, "Hey, I got 4. I'm good." Had her fallopian tubes tied, and sure enough, 5 years later, my twin brother and I are knocking on the stomach saying, "Hey, we're here." So technically, I'm not even supposed to be here, Chris, but my
You're a
mother and
miracle
I,
to be here.
yeah, I feel very blessed to be honest with you. But so my mother ended up having 8 children, 6 births, like I said, and yeah, Southern Texas. I mean, like you said, all the meats and the grilling and the steaks and growing up Mexican, of course, fajitas and enchiladas and all this authentic Mexican food that I grew up around. Just tons of meat, tons of cheese, and this was just my life. This is how I grew up. This is what I knew, right? And as luck would have it, we did end up moving to the
Mhm.
northern suburbs of Chicago, and ultimately that's where I was recruited to come play football at the University of Michigan back in 1986. But I grew up, ever since, Chris, I have memories of my mother. She was popping pills for diabetes.
Hmm.
So my entire life of me knowing my mother, she was ill. She was ill with diabetes, and then of course a whole slew of other issues that came as time passed. But when you look at my family, so my mother, 8 brothers and sisters, and you have to take one of my brothers out because unfortunately he was involved in a motorcycle accident at the age of 15 and survived for about 10 years, but ultimately passed just through all the complications due to that motorcycle accident. So he passed at a very young age, about 25, 26 years old. But if you look at the seven siblings in my family and my mother, you add up the years that we have battled diabetes as a family. It's over 140 years of fighting diabetes.
Oh.
Now you tack on to that, 4 different heart attacks, three organ transplants, 2 kidneys and 1 pancreas, 2 amputations. 2 of the individuals have gone blind. You look at dialysis, over 20 years of going and doing dialysis. You look at all of the devastation that chronic illness has caused to my family. And it really is. I give my presentation, I go through each one of my family members one by one, and we look at all of the illness that has riddled my entire family, including myself. And so, excuse me, apologize. I should have muted these phones. But sorry about that, Chris.
It happens. It's life. I'm waiting for either a kid or a dog to come running down these stairs behind me, so don't sweat it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you look at the devastation that chronic illness has caused to my family, right? And it's terrible. And unfortunately, my family and when I look at the devastation, it's not
Mhm.
unfamiliar to, unfortunately, many other families out there. There are so many people, so many families struggling. And, we're led to believe, well, you're Hispanic. Hispanics, have a high rate of diabetes. It's in your genes. There's not much you can do about this, right? This was all that I was fed and led to believe. And while that may be true, my genetics and my family's genes may be more predisposed to be diabetic than maybe another family. It's not the end all either, right? I mean, our genes,
Yeah.
they definitely, they have their characteristics and basically, determine, the color of our eyes, the color of our hair, etc. But when it comes to chronic illness, it really boils down to more of our lifestyle and the things we're doing, the habits that we have every day to be healthier or to, make those genes express in a negative way, right? Epigenetics, right? That what we're doing every day is either going to help our health or harm our health. And so when I peel that onion back and I look back at the fact that I was diabetic, type 2 diabetic for a decade. And in those 10 years, I also developed high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I was taking 5 different medications for those 3 conditions, for the insulin shots and 4 oral medications. I had psoriasis all over my scalp. I had heartburn regularly to the point where I had, Pepsid AC and Zantac and Tums in the car, at the office, in the house, because I was always flaring up, right? I was obese. I didn't sleep well. And you combine all that, and I was just a hot mess at 43 years old.
Wow.
And like I said, when I go to the doctor, when I started my insulin shots, for example, Chris, I remember the doctor, I asked him because I'd seen the devastation my mother, my little brother, and others in my family were going through. And I said, will I ever be able to stop this insulin? And he looked at me straight in the eyes and he says, no, you're going to be on insulin the rest of your life. And it
That
really pissed me off at that point because I now see myself, Chris, headed down that same path as my mother, my little brother, and many of my other family members.
that's crazy when you talk about a doctor being a medical professional, not having the information to say, yes, there is a way to get off of this insulin, and here's what we can do. But at what point? So you went on to play football in the University of Michigan. You and I have had conversations about the team meals, what you would see there. You would eat 2 or 3 steaks because you needed all that protein to be able to perform at that level. At what point, were you going through your stages of life? You're in college, you're playing football, you feel, as a former collegiate athlete, I wrestled all through high school and college. You feel like you are just King Kong. You're top of the world. You can eat whatever you want. You can drink whatever you want. At what point did you start seeing things to change for both your health and your perspective along your journey to start realizing that, I'm not invincible and, I am starting to follow the path of my family?
Yeah, so really that hit around 2002. That happens to be the same year that my mother passed. My mother was diabetic for over 33 years, 2 heart attacks, blind for over a decade, dialysis for a decade. I mean, a kidney transplant, you name it, Chris. And she went, all kinds of medications, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, etc. So in 2002, she ends up needing a double bypass. So forget about the diabetes and everything else, but all
Yeah.
this food that she had eaten all her life, similar to all the foods I was eating at that point, were clogging all of her arteries, all of her, causing this operation, this bypass to now be needed, right? And at that same time, my oldest brother, David, he was battling pancreatic cancer. Now, he was diabetic, high blood pressure, cholesterol as well. But now he's got this pancreatic cancer he's fighting. And I remember my mother feeling like I have to have this because we're all telling her, Mom, no, don't do the bypass because it takes you so long to recover from any little procedure or issue that you have. Can you imagine opening your chest and
Yeah.
bypassing and doing all this process, this procedure that's needed? And we advised her, but she really all she had, Chris, on her mind was, I got to help my son. My son is sick. He needs my help. I have to be around him and I have to try everything possible to be there for him. So she went ahead with the procedure. And unfortunately, like we thought could happen or might happen, she ended up not. She survived a few days later, but some of her toes were turning purple. They're now talking about amputating toes. She wasn't responding. She wasn't healing. And
Mm,
after the family gathered, it was ultimately decided, that hey, we have to let Mom go. And
sure.
so we're standing beside her bed, watching her take her last breaths. And this is our rock. This is the individual that took care of our entire family for all these years through all the trials and tribulations that our family went through. She was the one there, and now we're seeing her just fade away. So it was really terrible. So she passed in 2002, and then within 2 months, my oldest brother David, with the pancreatic cancer, he passes away too. Leaves behind his wife and two children that were young at the time or younger. So that same year, Chris, I was diagnosed with diabetes. And I wasn't shocked. I wasn't surprised because everything I had led to believe up until that point was you're going to be diabetic. Your whole family, it's history, it's in your genes. There's nothing you can do about it. And that's what I thought. So, sure enough, when they told me, uh, I'm diabetic, and now, sure enough, I start taking the medications. And then when you look at that decade, that 10 years that I end up being diabetic, since the first diagnosis, in that 10 years, that's when the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the psoriasis. So every year I'm just getting a little bit worse. I see all these symptoms, medications, procedures, different doctors, more doctor visits. Everything is just snowballing slowly but surely towards that devastation, just like I'd seen to happen, with so many of my other family members. So that's when I knew, man, I have to do something different. At the 10-year mark of me being diabetic, in that 10th year, my little brother, he also had his right leg amputated after being diabetic for multiple decades at this point. And I see this pressure, Chris, on my shoulders. Like, my mother never got to see my children. When our first child was born, we took her to Chicago to introduce her to grandma, but Mom was already blind. All
Oh,
she could
wow.
see was a silhouette. So didn't get to see the color of her eyes, the lines on her face. She could see the silhouette and she could hear her, but she never got to see her. And this is when, it really started to hit home, Chris, that, what? This is where I'm headed. I'm headed down this same path. Am I going to get to see my grandchildren? Am I going to get to see them graduate high school, maybe go to college, or whatever their dreams, take them, right? And so all this pressure was now, you know, basically causing some depression to me, to my wife. I'm 6'2", and at the time I started this journey, I was 260 pounds. My wife's 5'4" and 115 pounds. I mean, how's she gonna move me around, right? If I need help.
Yeah.
And so all these things, my kids, my children, their kids, am I gonna get to see them? All these things start flowing through, and you get depressed knowing that, hey, there's no hope here. All they're giving me is more medications, more procedures, but I'm seeing it, chronic illness, devastate my entire family. And we're kind of preparing for that train wreck to hit my family, my wife, my children, right? So
So that depression, that's real. Like you were told by your doctor, you're never coming off this insulin. There's nothing you can do. You've seen your mom struggle with diabetes for 30 years. You've seen your siblings struggle with diabetes and other health issues. And um, was there a point where you started to try things prior to receiving this gift in 2011?
it's funny you say that because I talk about this and how in that decade of being sick, I had tried to count carbohydrates. You know, you
Hmm.
hear people, oh, count the carbs because carbs make you fat. It just it baffles me how much misinformation is out there, right, when it comes to our health. But yeah, count the carbs. Hey, you know what? Let's exercise more and eat less. Let's portion control and not eat as much, right? Um, let's count calories, right? All these different tactics that we hear about, and they still exist today. I had tried most of those. And I found that in some cases, Chris, I would lose a little, maybe 10 pounds. And, you look in the mirror, you're like, hey, this is working. But long term and sustainable,
Yeah.
they really weren't for me. I don't want to be counting and putting stuff in. I don't want to have to do any of that, right? And so, yeah, you get motivated for a little bit, but then after a while, it becomes very cumbersome, and most people just don't want to have to do that. So,
Especially when you feel that, let's say if you're talking about counting calories or watching your carbs, you feel like you're being restricted in what you can and can't do, what you can and can't eat. And it's a very freeing feeling when you change your relationship with food and it starts to heal your body. Now, I mean, you can eat however many calories you want because the stuff that you're eating is just it's real food. First off, we could have a separate discussion about the not just the animal portion of what we don't consume in our diet, but if you look at the processed foods and the stuff that they allow in our foods, whether it be chemicals or preservatives or food coloring, and some of this is banned in other countries. Why do we allow it in our food? That could be a whole other discussion, but that's just it's very powerful, and I think that's one of the reasons why the counting carbs, the counting calories, the restrictive diets don't work because, like you said, yeah, for the short term, okay, I lost 5-10 pounds. You start to feel a little better, but then all of a sudden you're back to the same habits, eating the same foods that got you there, and then you've put the 10 pounds back on, and you're no better, if not worse off than you were.
yeah.
So in 2011, you received a gift from your in-laws, and I read about this, and it's one of those things. I would love to know if you are aware of what your in-laws' thought process is. So for me, like I know that if my in-laws gave me this, I'd be like, "What are you saying?" Uh, but if they were already kind of plant forward, or if this is something they just thought, "Hey, Mark, maybe you could benefit from this." When you receive, well, if you would tell folks what you received, and then kind of what the thought process behind all that was.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. As we look back, my in-laws, they ended up buying. So they ended up seeing on PBS, I believe it was a Forks Over Knives. They're selling the video. It had just come out recently, and so they're promoting it, etc. And my father and mother-in-law, they're like, "Hey, you know what? We know Mark is struggling with diabetes and these other
Mm-hmm.
health issues, so maybe this might be something that he might try." So, God bless them. They bought us the DVD, and I think they bought a few of them for other family members as well. But they gave it to us, and I look at it, I'm like, Forks Over Knives, and I'm like, what's this, right? So like, yeah, hey, thank you very much, right? But it kind of they gave it to us, and it sat on the shelf, Chris, for probably 3-4 months. We're like, yeah, okay, hey, thank you, and it's funny, but this is around that same time. My brother has his amputation.
Mm-hmm.
I get the Forks Over Knives documentary. My wife and I, we see what's happening. I know she sees it, and she's always eaten better, way better than me in the way of fruits and veggies and stuff. Where I always wanted the big steak and the big chicken and bunch of cheese over everything, right? And yeah,
Yeah.
I might have a fruit or maybe a piece of veggie here and there, maybe a little bit of lettuce, but not much. I wanted that meat and the cheese, right? And so the bottom line is one of these days that I was feeling rather depressed, and my brother just went through his amputation. I'm looking at my history, 10 years now, going on 10 years of struggling with all this disease. So we watched Forks Over Knives. And from that documentary, it's one of the things we had never tried. We tried counting calories, counting carbs, exercise more, eat less, all these different tactics, right? But this was one that we hadn't tried. It's like, hey, you don't really have to count stuff. You just need to eat, real food, whole food, right? And because the calorie density in these foods is so low, as long as you're not cooking with oil and all these high fats, you're going to be okay. You're going to more than likely, most people start to trim down their weight, right?
Hmm.
Their cholesterol levels plummet, their glucose levels improve, their energy levels improve, the inflammation. I mean, all the positives that we all know that happens with a plant-based lifestyle, low-fat plant-based lifestyle, right? And so from this documentary, we were introduced to Dr. Neil Barnard. Now, he has a book. It's called Dr. Barnard's Program for Reversing Diabetes. So we saw the documentary, we bought the book, read the book, and in there, after all was said and done, three main things. One is eat low fat, keep away from the animal products, and watch the glycemic index. That was the main 3 points we gleaned out of that book, right? And so my wife and I, after my brother's amputation, seeing me headed down this same track or same path, we said, well, this is something we haven't tried. Let's try it, right? And so my wife jumped on board with me. We both jumped in together. And on December 3rd of 2011, we remember the date. We remember everything we did that day. We adopted this low-fat, plant-based lifestyle. And Chris, let me tell you, man, my whole family's trajectory on that day, in that moment, changed. And we didn't realize at that time how big and how profound of an impact that was going to have, not only on me, but my wife's health improved. My children today are, for the most part, they're probably 95% plant-based or very close.
Sure.
Uh, but the impact that we're going to have, and hopefully, Chris, what we really saw and looking at it now, and hindsight's always 2020, but we hopefully have cut that history of having all this tragedy, health tragedy happening to our families. We know why I was diabetic and why I had high cholesterol and why I had high blood pressure. All these healthy issues that plagued me were because of the foods I was eating. It was my lifestyle, my foods, and my habits. And once we were able to fix that in a matter of a short amount of time, I'm talking 2 months. I was sick for 10 years, Chris, taking insulin shots and
Wow.
4 oral pills for the last couple years of those 10 years. And in a matter of 2 months, I was off all those medications. 3 months, I shed 50 pounds off my frame. I went from 260 down to 210, roughly. And I'd never felt better. Now at Michigan, I played at 305. I was a right guard, so I'm a bigger guy, and
Yeah.
I'm used to being 300 pounds, right? So got down to 210, and then here the last couple years with COVID, haven't really been going to any of the vegan restaurants because I've been home more, and so I shed another 10, 13 pounds or so. I mean, yesterday I weighed myself. I was 197, Chris, and the last time I weighed 197 pounds, I was in fifth grade. I was 10 years old. So, it's the power of food. And for all of your listeners, anybody who's hearing this or watching this, I promise you, if you have not tried a low fat, plant based lifestyle, you really need to at least give it an opportunity, make a concerted effort. If you give us 1 month of, just really give it 1 month, and you'll be amazed at what can happen in just that short amount of time.
It's almost serendipitous that you said this morning you weighed 197. So I wrestled 197 in college, and I haven't seen 190 anything in a very long time. A few months ago, my wife and I, so I'm recovering from hand surgery. Life in general gets in the way. And, yes, we eat vegan, but, we eat some of the processed stuff. We have kids. Sometimes that gets in the way. But I stepped on the scale. We're in June, probably first part of April. I stepped on the scale at 288 pounds.
Hmm.
And I said, look, we've got to start getting this under control. And we've been eating much better, much more whole food, plant-based goodness in our life. And I'm down 18 pounds and feeling really good. And we've been back at the gym and starting to work out again. And she's seeing it in herself as well. She's like, your wife, that, my wife has never struggled with weight. That's just, she's always eaten better than I have. So it's funny how similar some of this story is.
Yeah.
Um, Thankfully, my family's never had the diabetes. However, my dad's one of six. Him and all of his siblings, they have all been on high blood pressure medicine since they've been probably about 18 to 20 years old. and I've got all my cousins except for one. They're all on high blood pressure medicine, so that's something that runs in our family. Here recently, my dad and I we used to fight and argue over veganism, and he didn't understand it. And it is different. We grew up hunting and fishing in our family. We had some not so nice arguments about it in the beginning, and now I can say that my dad is probably 95% plant based. And
That's great.
just last week, so they've been really working on removing saturated fats from their diets.
Oh,
So my dad, for the first time since he was 23 years old, was able to stop taking two of his high blood pressure medications.
that's awesome.
So you hear these stories. It's not it's not that hard. It's really not. I know it's different, but when you start seeing the results, you start seeing the numbers. It really, like, you get excited about it. So my dad told me today, he's like, I weighed 159. And my dad, he was a police officer. He used to be, he could bench 300 and I think 15 pounds. Being a police officer, he was always in very good shape. One of his partners was Mr. Junior Ohio bodybuilder. So they used to work out so much. And, obviously he's not at that stage in his life anymore. He's retired now, and now he's able to focus on his health. And I can't wait till he gets off of that last. He's got one last high blood pressure medication. So, we had a discussion about this, about how sometimes pharmaceuticals, they're not meant to actually cure you. They are to mask the symptoms. And he said, that's not true. And I said, how long have you been taking high blood pressure medicine? And he's like, well, okay. And so I'm excited to see, like, every day when I talk to him, he tells me what my stepmom fixed him for dinner, how excited he was about food. And it's just, it's changing our relationship, because, just tonight, he was talking to my wife and I, and he said, hey, will you send me that recipe that you made, so Bobby can make these brownies? And it's just, when you see those changes, and your family's story changed because of the changes that you started to make. So the first time that you realized that you were coming off of your insulin, what was that like for you? Like, what went through your head when you're like, oh my God, this is happening?
Yeah, it was liberating. Literally, Chris, in a matter of days, 3 to 4 days, and I still have a little log kind of, because I remember I'm like, well, I'm going to start tracking this. I'm going to keep track of my glucose levels, my weight, that kind of stuff. But within 3 to 4 days of eating this low-fat plant-based lifestyle, now keep in mind, I'm a fast food junkie, man. I'm running through McDonald's and Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Pizza Hut and Five Guys, and for breakfast, it's White Castle, McDonald's, Hardee's, Burger King, right? And I just rotate them, but it's always the two sandwiches and the hash browns and the Diet Coke, because I want to be healthy, right? Forget about all the other stuff, but be healthy and drink a Diet Coke, right? And every morning that was my routine, and so I went from that guy to now eating oatmeal and having fruit and eating much better. So I saw amazing results in a matter of 3 4 days. I see my glucose levels plummeting. I'm able to in this 2 month time frame continue to reduce my insulin levels, ultimately getting to my pills, start cutting those in half. But if I had to say one word, Chris, liberating. I mean, when you think about anytime you go away for a weekend, go on vacation, okay, well, hey, how am I going to keep my insulin cold? Make sure you pack the pill box with all these pills, all of this stuff that I don't worry about and haven't worried about for over 10 years now, right? If I had to choose one word, I would say it's liberating, because I no longer, that's not even a thought. And no medications now, Chris, for over a decade. My weight has stayed, now again, in COVID, these last 2.5 years, I dropped another 13-ish or so pounds, but I was 210, 210 to 205
Sure.
for almost a decade, and then, or about 8 years, 8.5 years. And then here lately, I dropped another little bit because we've been staying home or working from home. But
It's
it's amazing, man. And you get this, you feel this sense of power that you now control your health. And I
yeah,
think a lot of time what gets overlooked, Chris, and I talk to people about this because it's something we don't, in my opinion, talk enough about. And that's that If I can't take care of myself, who am I going to depend on? My wife, my kids, maybe other family members that people may have close, and brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, right? But like I said, so many people just say, oh, well, that's just me. If it happens to me, big deal. If I die, so what? But the problem is our technology, the medical field is so advanced right now that we can keep people alive. They have a stroke, they have a
Yes.
heart attack, they stay alive, and now there's all kinds of, a stroke right now. I can't use the whole right side of my body or the whole left, depending on where that stroke happens, right? And who's going to end up taking care of these individuals now? The spouse, the kids, aunts, uncles, mom and dad, grandma, grandpa. All of these other people are now thrown into this realm of now having to deal with the individual that now needs help, right? And we're all going to pitch in and help. But what I'm trying to get across to people is, for most of us, it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to be that that burden, if you will, to others, to our loved ones around us, our kids, right?
Yeah.
And how am I, as a man, how am I going to take care of my family if I can't take care of myself? And so all these things I start thinking about, and I actually have a presentation that I've made, and it's called "It's Too Hard," because I hear that from so many people. Because everyone, it's too hard, it's impossible, it's too difficult, I can't do that. I get that from a lot of people when
Sure.
they start asking questions about plant based, etc. Right? But what it is it's a collage of my little brother. Luckily he's pretty open about his journey, and he's allowed me to kind of document his journey via pictures. And so there are photos of going to a dialysis procedure, photos of his amputation, photos of them having to remove all of his teeth because of the constant throwing up, because of the medications and the
Mm.
dialysis for so long. There are photos, and because when people tell me it's too hard, I generally will respond with, well, can you still see? Yeah, I can still see. Hey, do you have all your limbs? Yeah, I got both my arms and both my legs. Have you ever done dialysis? You ever been through any of those treatments? No, I haven't done. How about any organ transplants? You ever had a kidney or a pancreas transplant? No, no. I said, then I don't think you fully appreciate what hard is. Because the way I eat and my lifestyle, Chris, that's not hard, man. This is a lifestyle of abundance. We have thousands
Yes.
of varieties of fruits, vegetables, beans, and legumes. And all I have to do is cut out, the animal products, the oils, and a lot of the highly processed foods, right? And not cook with oil, and that's not hard.
It,
And so anyway, I just I try to get people to think about it from that perspective, because it's important.
yeah, I think you talk about it being hard or not. Your comparison, you know, being unhealthy is hard. Being healthy and eating right and cooking right is challenging at first when you have to change that, but once you get used to it, it's not hard. But if you look at it both ways, choose your heart. Do you want to be sick, dying, and nearly dead, or do you want to live and be vibrant and healthy and be here to do whatever it is that is important to you, whether it be your family or work or you know rescuing animals or whatever the case may be? Choose your heart, and
I love that.
you are absolutely right in that. You know, your comparison to have you ever had dialysis? Can you see? Do you have your limbs? Because most people probably don't have family members that have gone through those things and haven't seen them firsthand the way you have, and so that is an awesome comparison. It's sad and heartbreaking that you and your family went through this, but I love that you and your wife changed your family's trajectory. So, outside of your wife and kids, have any of your siblings started to follow along with you as well after seeing some of your results?
So some more than others, and I learned early on, Chris. This is the one thing I learned quickly, was that, you know what, you can tell, just the old, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink, right? The old analogies, right?
Yeah.
But I learned early on that at the end of the day, all I can do is plant those little seeds. Plant the seeds, let them know. They know me, they see me, holidays and when I get back to Chicago, etc. But you can't force anybody to do anything, whether that's family or whomever. And if you try, then what I found was when we first uncovered this amazing knowledge and the power of food, I was calling them frequently. Hey, man, let's do this, right? We're all diabetic. We can fix this. We can turn this around for most of us. And hey, even if you can't reverse it all, maybe you can reduce a lot of the meds, or maybe you won't go to as many doctor visits, or,
Yeah.
it's still going to be a positive experience. Let's do this. And I noticed the calls when I would start calling, they weren't picking up as much anymore.
Uh,
I was probably pushing too hard. That was probably on me. So now, I plant seeds. I remember we used to always send to Chicago, my mom and my brother, these little dessert cakes kind of around the holidays and stuff. And then I'm like, I'm not going to keep contributing to their demise from a health perspective. So I start sending them books and DVDs, and they're like, "Hey, where the hell are my little cakes?" I remember my mom like, "What the hell? Where's my little cakes? I was expecting my cakes around Christmas, and I'm getting this freaking book or a DVD. What was this?" But I love them too much, Chris. I'm like, I don't want to contribute to your further health demise. So
yes.
I love you too much to do that. And you can throw the book away, you can go in the garbage, you can burn it, whatever. But at least I know I'm trying to plant these seeds. And we try not to, for anybody, force it on anybody. We just
Sure.
plant the seeds, and we've learned enough now to say, look, if you want information, we're more than happy to help you and guide you and show you everything we've learned in this decade. But forcing people, it never works. And it just doesn't work. People have to be ready to hear this message. And it could be for whatever reason. I know you are huge on the animal impact. And it's so, I mean, if you look at these poor animals that suffer so much for us liking the way the food tastes. I mean, my food tastes amazing, right? And that's one of the fallacies too when we talk to people is, look, I grew up eating all these amazing, wonderful tasting foods, and guess what? I still enjoy these amazing foods. Why?
Yes.
Because the spices, herbs, rubs, sauces, that's what's giving the steak and the chicken and the fish its flavor. It's not the actual steak or the chicken. So do that same thing with the vegetables and the beans and the potatoes and all the fruits. Spice them up, man, and you'll be amazed at how good this food tastes. Right?
I think that is, highly important to discuss, because there is that misconception that, what do you guys eat? You guys just eat salads. And I see some of the pictures that you and Kim share out, some of the meals you guys have. And, we've got some friends who are raw vegans, which is, pretty awesome. But some of the food they put out there and the way they prepared it, and just like you said, it's all the spices, it's all the rubs, it's all the flavors, the seasonings that come from plants, that really make the food taste the way it does. When someone is not ready to receive that message, I try to approach people with compassion and kindness and plant seeds,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about animal activists. That's kind of my brand. I know there are other people that do it different ways, and different people need to hear different messages. But I try to plant those seeds because I honestly feel that most or more people are receptive when you are being kind and trying to talk to them versus, yelling at them or screaming at them. Because if you're yelling at me, I'm probably not listening to what you have to say anyways. So
Yeah.
that power of planting seeds and living by example, as you and your wife are doing, is much more powerful in my opinion. So I really appreciate that. So you guys have gone through this transition. You guys have realized how much it does for you. At what point did you guys start thinking, we could help other people, and by providing them information, by providing them the knowledge and ability to start doing this themselves? Like, what was it for you guys that started that catalyst to help others?
Yeah, I think it was, and I think we have on our website where it says, hey, once we found this out, we wanted to shout it from the mountaintop, right? Because so many people are suffering, like my family, and there's other people out there as well. And we need to know this because no one had told us, no one advised us, hey, try a low fat, plant based lifestyle. Not one person in my whole time of being sick, Chris. So it was pretty short after, didn't take us too long to figure we wanted to help people. That's why we started Chickpea and Bean Inc., which is a nonprofit organization, in 2014. So we adopted the lifestyle in 2011, shortly thereafter, we started to have meetings and things. And we said, you know what, we better have like a corporation or, a nonprofit. We just want to help people. And so we started the nonprofit in 2014. But it was within probably within a year to year and a half where we really said, okay, how can we share this with people, what we've learned, right? And maybe others can have similar results. And so, like I said, it was pretty quick after adopting this lifestyle, seeing our results, and then helping others that were interested and seeing that they were getting similar type results as well. And what's amazing is in our, over, well, since 2014 that we've been helping people, Chris, if people really wrap their arms around this idea of really giving it a concerted effort, a low fat, plant based lifestyle, there has not been one person that truly made a concerted effort to change their food, change their habits that has not gotten better. I mean,
Yeah.
there's not one person that's come to us and said, I'm worse because I eat this way. And it just hasn't happened. And here's the amazing thing, right? If you go to the American Diabetes Association's website, the American Cancer Society's website, the American Heart Association website, you look at fats, and what do they say? They pretty much all say, hey, keep the saturated fats kind of low. Don't eat too much. Where do we find, for the most part, saturated fat? The animal
Yes.
products. There's a few plant-based foods, but not many that have saturated fat. Nuts, seeds, avocados, coconut. Some of these we need to be mindful of, but there's not many. It's about on one hand, no more than two that you can count the plant-based foods that have saturated fat. And so you look at that, then they also tell you, hey, what? Don't eat too much cholesterol. Keep your cholesterol kind of low. Don't eat too much. Where do you find cholesterol? It's all found in the animal products. There is zero cholesterol in the
Yeah.
plant-based world. And they all tell you the same thing: eat more fruits and eat more vegetables. None of those pages are telling you, Chris, go out and load up on steak, go up and load up on chicken. They're not telling you that. They may have some recipes on their website because I believe the meat, dairy, and egg industry are funneling millions of dollars into those organizations, but they're not telling you go jump on a keto diet. Nobody's saying that in the medical world. Yes, you have these
Yes.
the keto folks. I know that there's a bunch of information out there on that, but I'm talking if you go to their websites, diabetes, American Heart Association, the cancer, nobody's telling you to go and eat a bunch of meat and eat a bunch of cholesterol. In fact, they're telling you the exact opposite.
I think that's one of the things I talk about it a lot because when you talk about things that are unhealthy, if you talk about cigarettes, there's a reason why a majority of people don't smoke today, but a lot of people don't realize that it took, I think it was over 7,000 studies before the U.S. Surgeon General would put a warning on cigarettes. And the reason behind that, and when you look at a study, and I don't care what you're talking about, whether you're talking about whole food, plant-based, whether you're talking about um, anything, whether it be a political topic, follow the money of the study. So for like Philip Morris from the cigarette companies was able to produce other studies that showed, our cigarettes aren't harming people. So there's no question that the meat and dairy industries are very powerful, very well funded, very well subsidized. On top of the FDA, if you look at the board on the FDA, a lot of that are former dairy and cattle, executives. So of course they're not going to, cut off their hand to spite their face.
Right.
But it's the information is getting out there, and there are folks like yourself and your wife who are helping others. You are sharing that information and trying to genuinely show other people how to literally cure a lot of these illnesses and how to fuel your body properly, how to heal your body without pills, without potions, without, crazy medications. And I think it's just awesome what you guys are doing. If you guys could, if you had the ability to reach, large scale, to be able to get that message out there, what would be the simplest thing that you would want to share with an audience to help them get started?
Yeah. So one of the things we tell people if they're looking to try and make a change, not sure where to start, we tell people start small. Try to find my wife and I tell people all the time, start small. Don't start going to 20 different websites and 20 different blogs and 20 different YouTube channels because the information will inundate you. It'll be information overload. And you'll be like, I don't know what to do. Start small, pick three favorite, or not, if they're not your favorite, maybe you're not eating them at all, but pick 3 breakfasts, 3 lunch, and 3 dinners that are low fat and plant based. Like maybe it's oatmeal, which like my go to for breakfast almost every day is oatmeal. What changes is the fruit. It might be apples, it might be blueberries, it might be bananas, it could be cherries. I mean, who could be a combination of all those, right? Uh, but but the bottom line is pick 3 breakfast, lunch, and dinners. Start there, foods that you know that you would enjoy, and then from there, once you get used to this routine, then you can start expanding your recipe base to now include more foods. But the key is, in our opinion, what helps us and most people out there is we are consuming way too much fat. Yes, there's too much salt and sugar in there too, but let's
Mhm.
start with the fat and then we'll work on the other two as we go. But the cool thing about eating whole foods, plants, they're not loaded with fat, salt, and sugar. It's what we're doing to those foods. So start small. Pick your favorite 3 breakfast. Pick 3 breakfast, lunch, and dinners that you feel you would love to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Start there, and then slowly start expanding your recipe base. Because if you start, there's also some apps, right, that'll have like a 21-day meal plan that can help you. But I feel like if you know the kind of foods that you could tolerate, whether that's some toast with a little bit of jam and maybe some banana or something on there, maybe an oatmeal, maybe a smoothie, right? If something that you think you could start with for breakfast and do the same thing for lunch and the same thing for dinner, keeping fat to a minimum. Start there, and then slowly but surely start adding more recipes to your database. That to me, I find that helps people. There's also typically two camps, Chris. We find that some people, if they start this, they're going to start tomorrow and they're just going to jump in and they're going to have issues and problems, but they're just going to work through them along the way. And then
Yeah.
others, they want to ease their way into it. Hey, let me just fix my breakfast this week. Let me focus on breakfast. The other lunch and dinner, I can still do whatever I want. Then next week, I'll have breakfast and I'll focus on lunch. So now I got 2 of them down. And then by the third week, now I got breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you ease your way in, so it's not such a shock when for some people who start this. So that's typically where we find the 2 types of camps of people when they start this. But whatever you do, I would also tell you, just start. Just start and keep trying. It's not about being perfect. It's not about you having to follow every single thing right from day one. We had some missteps along the way. There's always a ton of different new food coming out. So now my wife and I are like, well, what is this? And we look at the ingredients and look at the labels and try to make some sense of it. But try to keep it small and simple at first, and then slowly ease your way into making it a bigger base of recipes and foods that you're eating. And I always tell people, Chris, I am no more special than you or anybody else who may be listening to or watching this. I'm nobody more special than any one of you. If I can do this, I promise you, as I sit here, if this jock, macho, football guy, that grew up with this mentality of meat, cheese, I need all this for protein. If I can change, I promise you, any one of you that are listening or watching this, you can do it too. And it's not about being perfect. Just keep trying and keep trying. You will get there.
I think that's both of those points are very important to get started. And I like the approach of pick your 3 breakfasts, your 3 lunch, your 3 dinners. Keep it simple. Get started. I think that'd be very helpful for a lot of people. So you brought up football, and I've been dying to talk about Michigan football.
Yeah.
So, have any of your fellow classmates that you went to school with? You go back to reunions. You're still involved around Ann Arbor, and you see some of these guys from time to time. Have any of them either given you some grief, or have any of them tried to pick up off of what some of the things you and Kim have been doing?
Yeah. So I do get a razz from a few of them here and there. But quite honestly, Chris, most of them, when I see them at reunions, etc., I shouldn't say most, many of them, they're going through what I was going through. They're getting older. They're
Hmm.
eating the wrong foods. They're taking pills for cholesterol or blood pressure or diabetes, right? They're having all the same types of scenarios and chronic illness that I was dealing with. If they haven't been for a while, they're starting to feel that now. And so we have more of my former teammates than not have really begun to move that needle to a more plant-based lifestyle. After I get done talking to them, they see my results. And of
Sure.
course, when they saw me, I was 305. They see me today and they're like, "You're like smaller than a DB. What happened? Where are you?" And you see some of these other folks who were DBs or different positions that should be
Yeah.
smaller, and they're bigger than I was when I played. So again, it's I've had, in fact, one of my best friends at Michigan, 6'8", 330, 340 pounds when he played as offensive tackle, Greg Skrepnik. And I share his story because he's allowed me to share it. But in 2016, I'd see him at the reunions. I stood up in his wedding. We've been close for ever, since college. And in 2016, January, we finally convinced him to adopt a plant-based lifestyle. But he was at that time, Chris, he's 6'8", 535 pounds.
Wow.
Now he's the biggest man I have ever personally met. He's huge. Forget about now, years later, after he was played in the NFL for about 8 years with the Raiders and the Panthers.
Okay.
But the bottom line is he's 535 pounds. And when I see him, he's standing there and he's sweating. And I'm like, Greg, we got to do something here, man. Check out the results. I've had this. So my wife and I helped him. And in 1 year, he drops 150 pounds. He gets off his cholesterol meds. I mean, he's like, Mark, my inflammation. He goes, man, I just don't feel as inflamed as I used to. I can move around better. And it's all I need. And to this day, we talk all the time. He's still plant-based. He's still after the lifestyle. And he's like, Mark, I don't know what would have happened if I had not changed this, because this is 2016. So we're going on, about six plus years now. And he's still staying the course. And many others. It's funny because my wife and we offer what we call plant plunges. Those
Hmm.
are online courses that we give to people. And we've done that with former teammates. We do that a lot actually. And yeah, so we're trying to get as many of them on board as well. And you know what? Again, even if they can't for whatever reason or feel they can't get to 100%, just move the needle as much as you can. We're trying to meet people where they're at. And if you
Yes.
can't go 100%, but you can go 80 or 70 or 50, heck, that's better than not moving the needle at all. So
You that plant forward concept is also, I think, appealing to more people than saying all or nothing, to get started. So when you talk about your former teammate that way, unfortunately, I think we all know where he was headed. And, had he not started making changes, things probably would have progressed and gotten worse. And thankfully, you guys were able to shine some light into his life and highlight that. So you brought up how he talked about the inflammation. Um, so I wrestled all through high school and college. My right knee has been scoped 3 or 4 times now. And as I was in my mid 30s, my knees hurt every day. And part of that was because I thought I was, hard on my body. I was, rough on myself through high school, through college. And I just thought, that was part of getting old. What I didn't realize is, and through more information, meat and dairy cause inflammation in our bodies. And probably that was the very first thing that I noticed upon removing meat and dairy from our life, that the inflammation was gone and my knees don't hurt anymore, like ever.
yeah,
It's an incredible feeling.
yeah,
So
it's amazing. And again, you've experienced it. I have, I'm sure. And again, we love that there are people like you out there helping spread that message, spread the word. So just appreciate everything you're doing every day to try and help the animals, help the planet. But if we're going to help the animals and we're going to help the planet, let's help ourselves too, right? I mean,
yes,
why just take care of the animals and the planet? Let's take care of ourselves too, right? So, and you hit it on the head earlier with there are so many plant-based and vegan foods coming out anymore, but unfortunately, so many of them are loaded with the very things we're trying to minimize, which is fat, salt, and sugar. Right.
yeah,
So we got to be careful with that. More real whole food plants are going to be better for you. That doesn't mean you can't ever have a piece of, because I'll tell you, sometimes on our Facebook or our social media, you might see me shoving a piece of vegan chocolate cake in my mouth. But the trick and the key is you can't do that all the time, right?
yes,
Special occasions, once in a while, okay, but it's not. You can't do that every day, every week, because you'll end up probably right back where you were before. Even, I know many people who are vegan or plant based, but they're just they're still sick, and so let's help ourselves too.
Yeah. So, Mark, first off, I want to say thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you sharing your story, your passion that you and your wife have for helping other people fix their bodies, heal their bodies, and being able to find a way to enjoy life and break those generational curses of those health complications like your family has suffered. So, the help that you guys are providing is profound. I really appreciate your guys' passion and what you guys are doing for that as well. If you would, I'll give you a little bit of an opportunity here. If you want to share how folks can find you guys, some of the resources you guys can provide, and if you guys have anything that you guys are working on or anything that, big picture idea stuff that you guys would like to share that may be helpful to other people as well, I think it'd be great.
Yeah. So again, Chris, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited to see how this will grow and continue to just be an awesome platform for people to learn and educate themselves. Right. So appreciate and honored to be on your podcast here. So people can find out about us at chickpeaandbean.com. That's our website where you can find us. There's recipes. There's some different resources and information out there. We also offer private coaching. So if there's any individuals who would like to, be coached by my wife and I and all that we have learned over this decade plus of living this lifestyle and maintaining, obviously, no more chronic illness, etc., our weight, we can certainly talk about that as well. We do offer from time to time online classes that are called plant plunges. Right now, we're finalizing some dates for that, so you can look on our website to stay up to date with that. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and it's all Chickpea and Bean. So if you can find us that way through any one of those three social media platforms, and yeah, just excited. If we can help anybody in any way, please reach out. You can also email us. The email is right on our website as well. But thank you so much for all you're doing, Chris, to help so many, the animals, the planet, and so many other people that are going to improve their health because of what you're doing. So appreciate you, brother.
Thank you very much, Mark. It is going to take all of us to make a difference. I appreciate folks who come at this from a animal perspective, which is kind of the preface of veganism. But the way I look at things is if you are doing things to help the animals, it's going to improve your health. It's going to improve the environment. If you come at this from a health standpoint, you want to improve your health, I'm okay with that because in doing so, if you are consuming a whole food plant-based diet, you're helping the animals and helping the environment. And then if you find out that you want to start helping the environment, if you're doing that the best ways you can, you're going to quickly learn that that is going to help the animals and again, help your health. So it's kind of a trifecta of positivity that is good for all of us.
Yeah.
So Mark, I really appreciate your time. I hope everyone will check out Chickpea and Bean. I love the name for you two to be together, for Kim being Chickpea and yourself being Bean. That was some marketing genius there. I absolutely love it. And I hope everyone will go check that out. And thank you guys for what you do. And, you guys keep doing what you do and helping people. And together, we're all going to change the world. So
You got it.
everybody have a good one. I'll catch y'all later.